remembering those that survived the sinking of the RMS Titanic on April 15, 1912. The information provided was obtained and used from findagrave.com. This video contains passengers and employees with the last names starting with N and O. The remaining survivors will follow shortly. Adel Najib Kayami, born 1896, in Syria. She survived the sinking of the Titanic. Adele married Mr. Kayami. She passed away in 1924, at the age of 27, due to cancer. Adele is buried in New York. The next survivor is the Naked family. Husband, Said Anton Naked. Wife, Mary Movad Naked. Daughter, Mariam Naked. Said Anton Naked, born 1891, in Syria. He boarded the Titanic with his wife and daughter. They were third-class passengers, traveling to Connecticut. The family survived the sinking, and was rescued by the Carpathia. They were taken care of, in the hospital, and given $62.30, along with clothes. The family changed the spelling of their last name, after arriving in the United States. Mariam Naked, born 1910, in Syria. She was renamed Maria, also known as Mary. After arriving in New York, tragedy again hit the family when young Mary became the first survivor of the Titanic to die. Young Mary contracted meningitis and passed away in July 1912. Although originally buried in an unmarked grave in Potter's Field, a later descendant, related to her parents, purchased this headstone for her a few years later. Mary's remains were interred in Connecticut. The parents would go on to live in Connecticut for the remainder of their lives. 5 more children would follow later. Said passed away in 1926 at the age of 34 due to tuberculosis. He is buried in Connecticut. Mary Movad Naked, born 1892, in Syria. She never remarried after her husband's death. Mary passed away in 1963, at the age of 70, due to pneumonia. She is buried beside her husband, in Connecticut. The next survivor is the Nasser family. Adel Akam Nasser Shamali, born 1898, birthplace unknown. She was newly married to Mr. Nasser, and was pregnant. Adele boarded the Titanic along with her husband, and were second-class passengers. They were traveling to New York. Adele survived the sinking, but her husband did not. Her little boy was born in December 1912, but died hours later. The infant is not listed on the Find a Grave website. She later married Mr. Shamali, and he passed away in 1969, in a car accident. Adele passed away in 1970, at the age of 71, due to heart failure. She is survived by her 4 children. Adele is buried in Texas. The next survivor is Zad Nasrallah, also known as Mariana Asaf Khalil, born 1867, in Syria. There is no information available on this individual. I could not find her obituary on the Find a Grave website. The following information was obtained and used from the Encyclopedia Titanic website. Zad was a greengrocer and a sharp businesswoman who sold produce. She made enough money to return to Syria to visit her 2 sons she left behind when she first came to Canada. Zad boarded the Titanic along with her cousin and were third-class passengers. She survived the sinking. Zad's date of death and burial is unknown. The next survivor is the Navratil brothers. Edmund Roger Navratil. Dr. Michel Marcel Navratil Jr. Edmund Roger Navratil, born 1910, in France. He was 2 years old, on board the Titanic, when it sunk. In 1937, Edmund was married, and they would have 2 daughters. In later life, Edmund worked as an interior decorator, then became an architect and builder. During World War II, Edmund fought with the French army and was captured, making him a prisoner of war. Edmund managed to escape, but his health suffered, and he passed away in 1953, at the age of 43. Edmund is buried in France. Dr. Michel Marcel Navratil Jr., born 1908, in France. He was 3 years old when he boarded the Titanic with his father and brother. They were traveling under an assumed name of Hoffman. Mr. Navratil, the father, had stolen his 2 sons from his estranged wife. The boys, unable to speak English and too young, were dubbed orphans. The brothers were rescued in collapsible lifeboat D. They were the only 2 who remained unclaimed by an adult. The boys' mother recognized her boys from newspaper stories and was brought over to America by the White Star Line, where she was reunited with them in May. The 3 sailed back to France on the Oceanic. Dr. Michel went to a university where he married a fellow student in 1933. The couple had 3 children together. Dr. Michel went on to earn his doctorate, becoming a professor of psychology. In 1987, he returned to the United States for the first time since 1912 to mark the 75th anniversary of the sinking. He was the last living male survivor living in France. In 1996, Dr. Michel visited his father's grave for the first time in 84 years. He passed away in 2001 at the age of 92. Dr. Michel was cremated, and the location of his ashes is unknown. The next survivor is Harold Bentley Neal, born 1886, in England. He was a baker on the Titanic. Harold survived the sinking in Lifeboat 13. He passed away in 1950, at the age of 63. Harold is buried in England, in an unmarked grave. The next survivor is the Newell sisters. Madeline Newell. Marjorie Ann Newell Robb. Madeline Newell, born 1880, in Massachusetts. She was a graduate in 1903 of the Smith College. Madeline boarded the Titanic with her younger sister and father. The sisters survived the sinking. Madeline never married and devoted the rest of her life to philanthropic and charity work. She remained faithful and active member of the Hancock Congregational Church. Madeline would never speak of the Titanic disaster. On one rare occasion, she wrote a brief account for the university's journal in the 1950s. Madeline passed away in 1969 at the age of 88. She is buried in the Newell family plot, located in Massachusetts. Marjorie Ann Newell Robb, born 1889, in Massachusetts. In 1912, Marjorie, her father and sister journeyed to the Middle East and Egypt for a 3-month holiday tour. On their voyage back, they boarded the Titanic. The sisters survived the sinking in Lifeboat 6, but their father perished in the sinking. Marjorie went on to become a music instructor. In 1917, she married Mr. Robb and had 4 children. They lived in Illinois, and between 1925 and 1950, they resided in New Jersey, where Marjorie taught violin and piano. She traveled extensively and spent many summers in Switzerland. Marjorie made 17 trips to Switzerland up to the 1960s. She and one of her daughters opened and operated an antique business in New England. After the death of her mother and sisters, Marjorie spoke about her experiences on the Titanic. After the wreckage was discovered in 1985, she was interviewed frequently. Marjorie stated that the Titanic should be left undisturbed. Returning back to Massachusetts, Marjorie moved into a stately senior care facility in 1990. She passed away in 1992, at the age of 103. Marjorie is buried in the Newell family plot, located in Massachusetts. The next survivor is Helen Manipony Newsom Mathy, born 1892, in Ohio. She survived the sinking in Lifeboat 5. In 1913, Helen married Mr. Bear, a well-known tennis player. They would have 4 children. After her husband's death, she was remarried to Mr. Mathy. He was her husband's best friend. Helen passed away in 1965, at the age of 72. She is buried in New Jersey. The next survivor is Walter Henry Nichols, born 1876, in England. He worked on the Titanic as a dining room steward, second class. Walter survived the sinking in Lifeboat 15. He fought in World War I as a sailor. Walter retired from sea in 1927. He took part in the reunion of Titanic survivors at the premiere of the 1958 film, A Night to Remember. Walter passed away in 1960, at the age of 83. He is buried in England. The next survivor is Berta Olivia Nielsen, born 1894, in Sweden. She boarded the Titanic as a third-class passenger. Berta was accompanied by her fiancé. She survived the sinking. After the disaster, Berta never dared to travel over the Atlantic Ocean again. Berta married Mr. Christensen. She passed away in 1976, at the age of 82, due to a stroke. Berta is buried in Illinois. The next survivor is Helmina Josefina Nielsen, born 1886, in Sweden. She boarded the Titanic as a third-class passenger. Helmina survived the sinking in Lifeboat 13. She married Mr. Linder in 1918 and moved back to Sweden. Helmina passed away in 1971 at the age of 85. She is buried in Sweden. The next survivor is Juho Niskanen, born 1873, in Finland. There is no information available on this gentleman. I am leaving this lily for you, you are not forgotten. The following information was obtained and used from the Encyclopedia Titanica website. Juho was married around 1890, and they had several children. Having spent 3 years in the United States, Juho returned to Finland. He boarded the Titanic as a third-class passenger, and was accompanied by another male. Juho was traveling to Massachusetts. He was rescued in Lifeboat 9 or 15. Arriving in New York, Juho made a claim of £50, or $243, for lost luggage. He encountered hard times in the years after the disaster. Unable to find stable work, it was impossible for him to finance his family in Finland to join him in his new home. Alone and in poverty, he suffered mental health. Juho settled in California and worked as a rancher, living a lonely and reclusive life in a cabin 8 miles from the nearest town. He had one brush with the law. In 1924, he was charged with threatening to kill his neighbor. The neighbor stated that Juho started several fires and she heard several shots the night before. The following day, the neighbor went to his home to confiscate his rifle. Juho returned unexpectedly, catching her in the act. Juho reportedly drew a knife on her. The case was dismissed and charges were dropped in 1924, and he was released from jail. Despondent over his failure to strike gold, Juho set fire to his cabin in 1927. The neighbors tried to subdue the flames, but it was too late. Juho's charred remains was discovered with his rifle beside him and an exploded shell in the chamber. A later inquest determined he had shot himself. Juho passed away in 1927 at the age of 54. He is buried in California in an unmarked grave. The next survivor is Henry Noss, born 1881, in England. There is no information available on this individual. I am leaving this lily for you, you are not forgotten. The following information was obtained and used from the Encyclopedia Titanica website. In 1908, Henry was married. He and his wife had 2 children. Henry was a fireman on the Titanic, and his monthly income was £6 or $29.20. His nephew was also a fireman on the Titanic. Henry was rescued in Lifeboat 15. He returned to Southampton. Henry's wife was pregnant at the time of the disaster and gave birth to a son in September 1912. They had several more children thereafter, bringing their brood close to a dozen. Henry passed away at a hospital in 1961, at the age of 79. He is buried in England. The family had the grave resorted in 2020. The next survivor is Alfred Nerney, born 1892, in the Netherlands. He boarded the Titanic as a first-class passenger. Originally, Alfred was supposed to be in second class, but he tricked the purser that he was Baron von Draxted, and that he didn't like the thought of being in second class. Alfred survived the sinking in Lifeboat 7. While on the Carpathia, he behaved like a gentleman. Just after lunch, Alfred went to the smoking room and made himself comfortable on a pile of blankets. Some young women noticed it, and one of them approached Alfred and drew the uppermost blanket away, rolling him onto the floor. Everyone around gave an applause, and Alfred disappeared. In 1960, he was interviewed on the German television show about his experience on the Titanic. Alfred stated that the 1,500 people drowning sounded like a siren. He passed away in 1972, at the age of 80. Alfred is buried in Germany. The next survivor is William Nutbean, born 1881, in England. He was a fireman on the Titanic, and his monthly income was £6 or $29.20. William passed away in 1947, at the age of 65. He is buried in England. The next survivor is Colonel Elizabeth Ramel Nye, born 1882, in England. She was married and her husband passed away. Elizabeth was a second-class passenger on board the Titanic. She was rescued in Lifeboat 11. Elizabeth remarried to Mr. Darby, which gave her a future job. The couple had one son. She was interviewed by Walter Lord for his book, A Night to Remember. Elizabeth passed away in 1963, at the age of 81, the same day JFK was assassinated. She is buried in New York. The next survivor is Anna Sophia Nissen Gustafsson, born 1890, in Sweden. She was persuaded to travel to America. Anna boarded the Titanic and was a third-class passenger. She survived the sinking in Lifeboat 13. Anna remained in New York until 1915. She was saving money to return back to Sweden, but had second thoughts after hearing about the Lusitania disaster. Anna then moved to Iowa. In 1920, she was married to Mr. Gustafsson. Anna worked for many years as a cook for a college. She was a member of a church. In 1969, Anna moved to the Lutheran Home for the Aged. She passed away in 1977, at the age of 87. Anna survived several siblings and 3 children. She is buried in Iowa. The next survivor is the O'Brien family. Mother, Johanna Godfrey Quinn. Unborn daughter, Marion Columba O'Brien Hanlon. Johanna Godfrey Quinn, born 1884, in Ireland. She was described as a farmer's daughter at the age of 16. Johanna's father passed away in 1904, leaving her brother to run the farm. She then became involved with Mr. O'Brien. It is not clear if the two were officially married, but in 1912, it was clear that Johanna was pregnant. The couple decided to emigrate. They boarded the Titanic as third-class passengers, and were traveling to Illinois. On that fateful night, Johanna was rescued, but her husband perished in the sinking. Johanna arrived in New York, but did not travel to Illinois as planned. She also decided not to return to Ireland either. Johanna later became involved in a wrangling over compensation with Mr. O'Brien's family. She was able to produce evidence that they were definitely married, and went on to benefit from various relief funds. In September 1912, Johanna gave birth to her daughter, giving her the last name of O'Brien. Johanna remarried Mr. Quinn, and they would have one son together. She passed away in 1918, at the age of 34, due to the Spanish influenza. Johanna is buried in New York. Marion Columba O'Brien Hanlon, born 1912, in New York. After she was born, Marion and her mother lived in New York. Marion married Mr. Hanlon. The couple lived in New Jersey and had 3 children. After her husband passed away, Marion moved in with her daughter, who lived in Tennessee. Marion passed away in 1994, at the age of 81. She is buried in New York. The next survivor is John O'Connor, born 1882, in England. He was a substitute trimmer on the Titanic, replacing the crewmen that did not sail on the ship. John's monthly income was £5 or $24.30. He passed away in 1933, at the age of 51. John is buried in England. The next survivor is Patrick O'Keefe, born 1890, in Ireland. He emigrated in 1910, settling in New York, working as a porter. Patrick returned to Ireland for a month's holiday in 1912. Before boarding the Titanic, he sent his father a postcard, expressing his sorrow that he was leaving again. Patrick had a premonition that the ship would sink. He tried to sell his ticket, but was unsuccessful. Patrick was traveling alone. He boarded the Titanic and was a third-class passenger. On that fateful night, Patrick found himself in the water and managed to pull himself aboard the capsized collapsible B. Arriving in New York, Patrick spent time in the hospital sustaining heavy bruising, rendering him unable to work for several weeks. Patrick received a grant from the American Red Cross of $102. He then worked as a window dresser in a department store and later an elevator operator in an office building. Patrick began a relationship with Anna Nolan. In 1923, they were married and had 2 children. The marriage ended in a divorce. The separation was short-lived, and in 1936, they remarried. Patrick passed away in 1939 at the age of 49. He is buried in New York. The next survivor is Honora O'Leary Herlihy, born 1895, in Ireland. At the age of 16, she traveled to America on the Titanic. She was going to join her older sister in New York. On the night of the disaster, Honora was woken by a crash. Water soon began to seep into her cabin. Honora entered a lifeboat that was being filled, thinking it would return back to the ship. After living 9 years in New York, Honora returned back to Ireland and never left again. In 1922, she married Mr. Herlihy. The couple have 5 children. Honora passed away in 1975, at the age of 79, 1 month before what would have been her 80th birthday. She is buried in Ireland, in front of another Titanic survivor, Daniel Buckley. The next survivor is Carmina Fermina Oliva, born 1872, in Spain. She was a first-class passenger on board the Titanic. Carmina was a personal maid to Mrs. Castellana. She was rescued in Lifeboat 8. Carmina passed away in 1969, at the age of 96. She is buried in Spain. The next survivor is Harry Oliver, born 1871, in England. There is no information available on this individual. I am leaving this lily for you, you are not forgotten. The following information was obtained and used from the Encyclopedia Titanica website. Harry appears to have joined the Royal Navy at a young age. In 1897, he was married, but the couple had no children. In 1907, Harry was serving as a steward aboard the Majestic. He signed on to the Titanic as a fireman, and his monthly income was £6 or $29.20. Harry was rescued possibly in Lifeboat 9. He returned to England following the disaster. Harry remained living there for the remainder of his life. He passed away in 1944 at the age of 72, just 2 days shy of his 73rd birthday. Harry is buried in England in an unmarked grave. The next survivor is Alfred John Oliver, born 1884, in Bailiwick of Jersey. He worked on the Titanic as a quartermaster. Alfred was relieved at the wheel by Mr. Hitchens before the Titanic hit the iceberg. He stayed on the bridge to see the collision. Alfred survived the sinking in Lifeboat 5. After the disaster, he continued to work for the White Star Line, but never worked at sea again. Alfred passed away in 1934, at the age of 50. He is buried in Bailiwick of Jersey. The next survivor is Arthur Carl Olson, born 1903, in New York. After his mother's death in 1906, his father took Arthur to live with his grandmother in Norway. Arthur's grandmother passed away in 1911, so his father traveled back to take him to New York, where he resided. They were originally booked on the Philadelphia, but were transferred to the Titanic. They were third-class passengers. After the collision, Arthur's father carried him to Lifeboat 13. His father perished in the sinking. Arriving in New York, Arthur's stepmother took him to her home. For a while, Arthur was in the Navy, and in later life, he held a succession of different jobs. Finally settling in Florida, Arthur was a house painter. He anglicized the spelling of his name from Arthur to Arthur. Arthur had a brief unhappy marriage, from which there were no children. He passed away in 1975, at the age of 71, leaving no immediate relatives. Arthur is buried in Florida. The next survivor is Alfred Fernand Aumont, born 1882, in France. He was a cotton dealer. Alfred boarded the Titanic as a first-class passenger. On that fateful night, he was playing auction bridge with several gentlemen when the collision took place. They all were rescued in Lifeboat 7. Alfred passed away in 1948 at the age of 65. He is buried in France. The next survivor is Frank Osman, born 1884, in England. There is no information available on this individual. I am leaving this lily for you, you are not forgotten. The following information was obtained and used from the Encyclopedia Titanica website. Initially working as a bricklayer, he went to sea at the age of 14 and joined the British Navy at age 16, although he stated he was a year older at the time, in 1900. In 1907, he was married. The couple would have 7 children. In 1912, he signed on to the Titanic as an able seaman. His monthly income was £5 or $24.30. At the time of the collision, he was outside the seaman's mess, on deck C, waiting for the bell to chime, signaling the start of his shift. Soon orders filtered down that all seamen go to the top and clear lifeboats. He was rescued in Lifeboat 2, containing 25 to 30 people. He stated that the ship reached a certain angle, then exploded, and broke in halves. As daylight broke, he saw the iceberg, describing it to be about 100 feet tall, round, and had one big point sticking up on the side. It appeared to have had a piece freshly broken off. Frank returned to his family in England and continued to work at sea. He joined the Royal Naval Reserve in 1913 and was decorated for his service. Following the war, Frank rejoined the merchant fleet and served on several ships as an assistant storekeeper. In 1934, Frank left the sea and took over the Cyprus Inn. When the venture folded after a year, Frank took over the Queen's Hotel, where he worked for the rest of his life. In the last 6 months, Frank had been ill with health issues. He had heart and blood pressure problems, and suffered 2 minor strokes. The onset of physical ill health, Frank showed mental well-being. He was afraid to go outside, had depression, and was irritable. According to his wife, it was a normal day at the pub. Frank was serving customers, being jovial, even joking with them. Following a brief absence, his wife found him hanging by a rope in the cellar of the pub. Frank passed away in 1938, at the age of 54. He is buried in England. In 2019, Frank's wartime medals were put up for auction by his family. The next survivor is Mary Osman, born 1881, in Croatia. She boarded the Titanic as a third-class passenger. Mary survived the sinking, but the lifeboat number is unknown. She married Mr. Kolick and changed her first name from Mara to Mary. Mary passed away in 1930, at the age of 48, due to cancer. She is buried in Wisconsin. The next survivor is Helene Ragenhild Osby, born 1889, in Rhode Island. She was returning to America with her father after a tour to Europe and North Africa. They boarded the Titanic. Helene was rescued, but her father perished in the sinking. In 1930, she traveled back to Europe. Helene decided to remain in Brussels, living there for 10 years. In 1940, she was awakened by bombs falling from German planes. Helene then fled to Lisbon, waiting for a plane to arrive for America. In 1941, she arrived back in Rhode Island and never returned back to Europe. Helene later worked as a volunteer for a hospital, and she never married. Helene passed away in 1978, at the age of 88, due to uremia. She is buried in Rhode Island, close to her father. The next survivor is Charles Alfred Othen, born 1876, in England. He was a fireman on the Titanic. Charles survived the sinking, but the lifeboat he was in is unknown. He continued to work at sea. Charles passed away in 1952, at the age of 76. He is buried in England, in an unmarked grave, but with a wooden cross. The next survivor is Percy Thomas Oxenham, born 1889, in England. He boarded the Titanic as a second-class passenger and was traveling to New Jersey. Percy was rescued in Lifeboat 13. In 1916, he was married. Together, they welcomed a daughter. Percy passed away in 1954, at the age of 64. He is buried in New Jersey. If you like this content, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to my channel at MeTime806. Thank you very much.